She walked into the bank like any other customer. But 10 minutes later, 3 people were out of a job. Not because she raised her voice, but because she didn't. And because she was the kind of person who didn't need to flash a title to be treated like a human being. Charlotte, North Carolina. A quiet Tuesday morning in early fall. The rain from the night before still clung to the pavement. The sky hung low and heavy, the color of steel. At the corner of East Tremont and Caldwell, a silver sedan eased silently into a space marked Visitors. No driver, no bodyguards. Just a woman in black slacks and a navy blouse, curls pinned neatly at the nape of her neck, a leather bag over her shoulder, eyes calm, and the quiet confidence of someone who didn't need permission to walk into any room. Her name was Danielle Ross. Most people didn't recognize her, and she liked it that way. But if someone had looked up twice, they might have noticed the tiny gold pin glinting on her collar, a symbol of Prime West Financial Group, one of the fastest-growing finance firms in the southeastern U.S. Danielle wasn't just a customer. She was the chief executive officer. And the building she was about to enter had belonged to her company for 4 days. But at that moment, no one inside the bank knew that, and none of them seemed to care. Inside, the air still held the faint scent of printer ink and cinnamon coffee creamer. A TV on the wall played a financial news segment no one watched. 3 metal chairs sat in a line. A potted plant reached toward a clouded window. Everything was still, quiet. And in that quiet, the small things rang loud. Danielle wasn't there to make a statement. She had simply come to verify the transfer paperwork for a corporate account, an appointment she had scheduled over the phone with someone named Marcus Lane. She arrived early, 9:03 a.m. The lobby wasn't crowded, but it wasn't empty. A woman carrying a designer handbag walked in right after her and was immediately greeted with a smile. "Danielle?" She stood there, silent, and no one looked up. She stepped gently toward the business account counter. Behind the glass were 2 women. One, with tightly pinned hair and bright red lipstick. Her name tag read Heather. The other was older, flipping through a folder with concentration. Neither of them looked up. Danielle waited. She wasn't in a hurry. She was used to waiting. But it's not the time that hurts people. It's the way they're treated while they wait. Heather finally glanced up. No smile, no greeting, just a flat question. "What do you need?" Danielle nodded politely. "I'm here to follow up on a corporate account transfer. I called yesterday and was told Mr. Marcus Lane would be in from 9 to noon. Heather smirked, a smile that was half polite, half dismissive. "That requires an appointment. You can't just show up and ask. Marcus isn't in yet." No apology. No attempt to assist, just a well-practiced brush-off. Danielle could have said something. She could have reminded Heather that one glance at the system would reveal exactly who she was. But she didn't. She simply replied, calm and composed. "Could you please let him know I'm here?" Heather rolled her eyes, typed a few keys without looking up, then muttered under her breath like the request was a nuisance. "I'll let him know." No glance, no acknowledgement. But Danielle didn't need to see. She already knew this tone too well. The silent assumption. You're not someone important. Only this time. They had misjudged the wrong person, 9:07 a.m. The clock ticked softly. Danielle sat by the window. Jazz played. Financial news looped on mute. No one noticed her. She wasn't tense, just quietly waiting. Not for paperwork, but for respect. A white woman walked in with a designer bag. She was welcomed with a smile. Danielle? Still ignored. Later, a man asked about a wire transfer. Heather, who hadn't acknowledged Danielle, lit up with friendly small talk. Still no update, no apology. By 9:15, Danielle stood and asked, "Has Mr. Marcus arrived?" Heather replied flatly, "No, I told you to wait." No kindness, no effort. Danielle sat back down. But something in her had changed. Stillness, sharp and quiet. A couple walked in. They were immediately taken to a private office. Danielle didn't ask. She didn't need to. Who matters was already clear. 3 minutes later, she stood up. This time, she walked forward. A young black woman with earbuds stopped her politely. "Hi, ma'am, can I help you?" Danielle replied calmly, "I have an appointment with Marcus Lane or someone over corporate accounts." The woman checked her tablet. "Marcus isn't in yet. May I have your name?" "Danielle Ross." A moment of silence. The young woman's expression changed. Not fear, but recognition. That name. Danielle Ross. A moment of silence. The young woman's expression changed. Not fear, but recognition. That name. Danielle Ross. The woman's internal emails are called the one who decides the future of the entire system. "Yes, ma'am, I'll alert the branch manager. Please wait just a moment." For the first time that morning, someone truly listened. Danielle returned to her seat and checked a message from Malcolm Price. "Everything okay? Smooth so far?" She typed "fine," then deleted it. Typed again. "Not quite. Give me 10 more minutes." Just as she put her phone away, voices behind the glass whispered loud enough to hear, "I don't get why she's still sitting there. She doesn't even look like she belongs in the business suite. Probably thinks she owns the place." Danielle didn't react. She simply gripped her bag tightly. She wasn't the type to lash out. But she didn't let things go without consequence. 9:22 a.m. 19 minutes had passed. No one, except the young receptionist, had treated her with any real attention. Danielle stood, didn't ask, didn't explain. She walked directly toward the manager's office hallway. Just then, the door opened. Gerald Whitman, the regional director, stepped in and recognized her immediately. "Ms. Ross, I'm truly sorry. There's clearly been a misunderstanding. May we speak privately?" Danielle glanced toward the counter, where Heather and her colleagues were just beginning to realize who she was. "No need for private," Danielle said calmly. "Here's fine." Gerald turned and commanded, "All customer-facing staff, conference room, now." Heather froze. "What's going on?" "Inside. You'll find out in 5 minutes." Heather, Ryan, and Layla entered the meeting room silently. No more smiles, no more chatter. Only the weight of being seen and knowing they were wrong. Danielle sent one message. "Initiate next phase, HR prep in motion." Gerald asked, "Should I call Malcolm Price?" "No," she replied. "He's expecting me." Inside the conference room, the staff sat quietly, like students waiting for bad grades. Danielle stood outside, calm, collected. Not angry, not loud, just clear. "I didn't come to humiliate anyone. I came to see how far this system would go to ignore someone who looked like a stranger." Now, she had her answer. Meanwhile, behind the counter, Kendra Miles, the young receptionist with the earbuds, posture straight and gaze steady, stood quietly watching. She didn't need to know the guest's name. This morning, she was the only one who made eye contact, without judgment, without pretense. And that, it would change the course of her life. And now, she knew for certain. That name, that face. Danielle Ross, the CEO, had instructed every branch to welcome with utmost care during Monday's staff briefing. Kendra swallowed hard. Not from fear, but from secondhand shame. Shame for everyone else in that room. The conference door creaked open. Gerald entered first, glancing around as if to speak. Then, silently stepped aside. Danielle walked in. The atmosphere thickened immediately. No one spoke. No one even breathed too loudly. She stood before them, the morning light slanting through the window, casting a line of gold across her shoulder. I'm here today as a representative of Prime West Financial, she began. Her voice was soft, but impossible to ignore. 4 days ago, my company officially completed the acquisition of this banking network. I visited 12 branches this week. At most of them, I was treated with basic courtesy. A few even offered me coffee. She paused, not for drama, but her next words would echo deeper. Here, I waited 30 minutes. No greeting, no help, not a single meaningful look. I was whispered about, judged for my clothes and my skin. No one asked what I needed because everyone assumed I couldn't be anyone. Ryan glanced at Layla, Heather stared at the floor. No one dared to speak. I'm not angry, Danielle continued. I'm disappointed, and I have every right to be. Danielle pulled out her phone and tapped once. A soft chime. Message sent. Effective immediately. Heather Collins, Ryan Bishop, and Layla Ahmed are dismissed from this branch. HR will follow up before noon. Access revoked. Final pay will be sent to home addresses. The room went cold. Layla whispered, You're firing us? Danielle nodded, but her eyes weren't on them. She looked past them, to the doorway where Kendra still stood, quiet but strong. Gerald leaned in and said softly, Ms. Danielle would like to speak with you before she leaves. Kendra blinked. Me? Yes, right now. The lobby was still gray, but the air felt lighter as Kendra walked toward Danielle. Slow, steady steps. Notebook in hand. You wanted to see me? For the first time that morning, Danielle smiled. Call me Danielle. What's your name? Kendra. Kendra Miles. Kendra, can I ask? Why didn't you brush me off like the others this morning? Kendra paused, then answered honestly. I recognized your name from the emails, but even if I hadn't, I think if someone says they're here for a reason, they deserve to be heard. Danielle nodded. That's the best answer I've heard today. Have you ever thought about going into project management? Kendra's eyes widened. Actually, yes, but I didn't know how to start. Perfect. Malcolm Price will call you within 48 hours. You're joining a 6-month development program, and if you keep showing this kind of calm, no-fluff integrity, you'll go far. Kendra was stunned. She didn't speak. She just nodded, quietly taking it in. For the first time in her life, she felt something shift. Not a title, not a paycheck, but the trust of the right person at the right moment. No shouting, no drama. Danielle had simply stood her ground. 3 people avoided her gaze. The firings had been delivered. But what shook them most? What came next? The truth. Danielle looked at each of them, not cruelly, but directly. My decision wasn't because I'm a CEO, or because I expect special treatment. She paused. It's because I saw something a regular customer would never get the chance to fix. Every eye dropped. Heather sank into her chair. Ryan clenched his jaw. Layla muttered something under her breath. Then Danielle asked quietly, Miss Collins, can you explain why 2 people who arrived after me were helped before me? Heather said nothing. She had never imagined she'd face that question at this level. And maybe you could also explain, Danielle continued, why you thought I didn't belong in the business client area? No one answered, because any excuse now would sound hollow. Danielle nodded. I don't need anyone to kneel or be afraid. But I do need everyone in financial services to understand this. Respect is not a bonus reserved for those with money or titles. Respect is the floor, not the reward. Gerald leaned against the wall, arms crossed. He didn't interrupt, just listened, like everyone else in the room, because everyone knew this was a lesson no training manual had ever taught. Danielle closed the meeting with a simple truth. If a stranger walks in and your first instinct is to assume they're not important, then you've just jeopardized the credibility of the entire institution. And this time, that stranger happened to be the one who signed the contract that owns you. No applause, no pushback, just the heavy silence that lingers like ash after fire. Danielle walked out of the room. Kendra stood waiting in the hallway, still processing everything. She asked softly, "It's over?" Danielle nodded. "For me, yes. One more thing left. But my part's done." As Danielle left the meeting room, not a single voice followed. The door clicked shut behind her, and Gerald remained inside. He turned to the remaining staff, those who had not been dismissed. His voice was calm, low, but no longer distant. "I've worked in this banking system for over 20 years. I've seen 4 mergers. Every time some people go, some stay. But one thing I've never seen is a CEO like Danielle Ross." He paused, eyes flicking toward the door. His voice grew slower, clearer. "She didn't have to come here in person. She didn't have to sit and wait. She didn't have to handle it herself. But she did. Not to prove a point, but to see how we treat someone we think doesn't matter." The room fell silent. No one deflected. Every gaze turned inward. Marcus Lane, the man Danielle had scheduled the meeting with, stood just outside the hallway, shirt still wrinkled. He caught Gerald's glance, then looked at Kendra. And in that quiet moment, he realized just how close he had come to losing everything, because of his assumptions. In the parking lot, Danielle stood leaning against her car, arms folded. She wasn't in a hurry to leave. A few minutes later, a sleek black SUV pulled up. Malcolm Price, executive vice president, stepped out. He didn't say much, just asked, "You okay?" "I'm fine," Danielle nodded. "But we need to rewrite the training program. Start with human values." "I'll handle that," Malcolm replied. "What about PR? Do you want to keep this under wraps?" "No," she said plainly. "People should know. Some things are meant to spread." Malcolm nodded. He understood. With Danielle, going public wasn't about scandal. It was about setting the standard. Then he asked, "The receptionist, Kendra, what's your plan for her?" "Put her in the internal development track. 6 months. I want to see how far she can go if she holds on to the kind of strength she showed this morning." "And Marcus?" "Keep him. He's not bad, just not fully awake yet. The kind of person who can grow, if you correct him at the right moment." Back inside the employee break area, Marcus handed Kendra a coffee. His voice was quiet but sincere. "I'm sorry. For not noticing. For making her wait. I should have been there." Kendra accepted the cup, steady. "And I know I didn't have to speak up, but I did. Because the right thing should be done, even when no one's watching." Marcus nodded. For the first time that morning, he understood why he'd been spared and why she had been chosen. The next morning, a notice was taped to the front door of the bank. Temporarily closed until 10:30 a.m. for staff retraining. Thank you for your patience. No more laughter. No small talk. But inside the conference room, one person sat in the front row. Pen ready, notebook open, eyes steady. Her name was Kendra Miles. And that day, people began to see her differently. No longer the girl at the front desk, but the first to do the right thing, before anyone else realized something was wrong. 2 days later, at the Prime West financial headquarters in Atlanta, Danielle sat in a small meeting room. No spotlight, no cameras, just 18 young faces. New graduates were selected for the company's annual strategic internship program. Their eyes were bright, their hands poised above blank pages, and even though they'd heard about the most unreachable CEO in the company, today she sat just across the table. Danielle didn't begin with a speech. She started with a question. How many of you have ever been judged by your appearance, your name, or the way you entered a room? Nearly half raised their hands. The rest just looked down. Danielle nodded. So have I. And it'll happen again. But what matters more is what you do when you see it happening to someone else. A young woman in the front row, hair in braids, asked softly, "That day, was it hard? Being treated like you didn't deserve to be there?" Danielle smiled, gentle, but not sad. Of course it was hard. Every cell in my body wanted to slam the counter, name my title, and end the whole thing in 3 minutes. But I didn't. She stood, walked to the whiteboard, and wrote 4 words. Respect doesn't wear labels. She turned back. I don't want you to remember me because I'm a CEO. I want you to remember me as the woman who walked through a terrible morning, without yelling, without rage, without destruction. I simply let them hear their own voices in the silence they created. The room was still, not from fear, but because each person was quietly searching themselves. Danielle walked toward the door, but before she left, she said, "One day, you'll be the person in the room with power, and you'll have just seconds to decide whether or not to act. Don't waste that moment." Later that afternoon, with meetings stacked and phones ringing nonstop, Danielle still carved out 10 minutes for one personal call. The phone rang 3 times before the voice picked up. "Hello, this is Kendra." "It's me, Danielle Ross." There was a short pause on the other end. "Hi, Ms. Ross?" Danielle let out a soft laugh. "Kendra, I just wanted to say something simple. You did the right thing when no one was watching, and that's worth more than 1,000 hours of training." "Thank you. I still can't believe this really happened." "It happened, and it started with instinct. Don't let the environment dull that instinct. Keep it. Protect it." Kendra was silent, not because she didn't know what to say, but because she was feeling something she'd never been given before: trust. Danielle continued, "This December, when we review promotion candidates, your name will be on the priority list, not because you stood out, but because you knew how to quietly stand in the right place." Kendra blinked, leaning back into her chair. For the first time in her life, she understood that even without the spotlight, you could still be seen, if you chose the right thing to do when no one else was looking. A few weeks later, on a professional networking platform, a small post appeared. Kendra Miles, front desk associate at the Charlotte branch, has been selected for the Internal Leadership Development Program. She is an example of professionalism and natural leadership intuition. No thousands of likes, no viral fame, just a small shift. That began with doing the right thing. And if someone were to ask, was this story about position, about power, or about revenge? The answer would be no. It was a story about standards, about how one woman refused to get angry, so others would be forced to face themselves, and about a young woman who chose respect, even when no one told her she had to. Thank you for staying with us until the very last moment. If this story made you pause, even just for a second, to reflect, to feel, or to remember someone who's ever been overlooked, then that alone is something truly valuable. Maya may be a character in this story, but out there are many more Mayas, quietly fighting to be seen, to be heard. If you believe that everyone deserves a fair chance, please share this video, so the story doesn't end here. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you won't miss the next heartfelt journey. Stories that may seem small, but carry enormous hope. Once again, thank you.